Plato was born into privilege. His family's bloodline traced back to kings of Athens and even the mythical lawgiver Solon. As a child of aristocracy, the path before him was clear: politics, power, and leadership. But young Plato was restless. He first turned to poetry, writing plays and verses, dreaming of fame as a writer. Some say he could have rivaled the tragedians of Athens, yet destiny had other plans. Then he met Socrates, a poor, strange-looking man who walked the streets barefoot, questioning everyone he met. Unlike the polished politicians, Socrates didn't give speeches. He asked questions that stripped away illusions, forcing people to face the truth. Plato was captivated. The encounter shattered his ambitions for wealth and power. He abandoned politics and poetry, choosing instead to follow Socrates everywhere, like a shadow. From that moment on, his life's mission changed forever, not to rule Athens, but to search for truth.
In 399 BCE, Plato's world collapsed. His teacher, Socrates, was put on trial, accused of corrupting the youth and dishonoring the gods of Athens. Plato was there, watching as his mentor faced a hostile jury. He saw Socrates refuse to beg for mercy, refusing to compromise his principles. While others wept, Socrates spoke with calm defiance, declaring that a life without examination was not worth living. When the death sentence was pronounced, Plato was devastated. His teacher could have escaped, friends had arranged it. But Socrates chose to stay, teaching even in his final moments that philosophy must be lived, not just spoken. Plato witnessed the poisoned cup raised, the calm acceptance of death, and the silence that followed. That memory seared itself into his soul. From that day forward, Plato swore that Socrates' voice would never die. If Athens had killed the man, then Plato would keep the philosophy alive, not just for his city, but for the entire world.
After the death of Socrates, Athens felt poison to Plato. The city that executed its wisest man no longer seemed a place where truth could survive. So Plato left. He traveled across the ancient world in search of knowledge. In Egypt, legends say he studied with priests who preserved secrets of mathematics, astronomy, and the mysteries of the soul. In southern Italy, he met followers of Pythagoras who believed numbers were the hidden language of the universe. Their influence would shape his own vision of reality. In Sicily, he encountered the court of Dionysius, a tyrant surrounded by luxury and corruption. Plato spoke boldly, challenging the ruler's greed and injustice. It nearly cost him his life. He was sold into slavery, and only through the intervention of friends was he freed. These journeys hardened him. He saw wisdom, he saw power, and he saw the dangers of both. By the time he returned to Athens, Plato was no longer just a student of Socrates. He was becoming something greater, a philosopher with a vision of his own.
Plato's travels brought him again and again to Sicily, to the court of Dionysius, the tyrant of Syracuse. This was not just chance. Plato carried a dream within him, the dream that a philosopher could guide a ruler, shaping him into a just king. At first, Dionysius welcomed him with curiosity, but soon Plato's sharp words and fearless honesty clashed with the ruler's pride. A tyrant surrounded by flatterers does not welcome truth. Plato's advice was seen as dangerous, even insulting. The story goes that Dionysius grew so enraged he sold Plato into slavery, sending him to the island of Aegina. Imagine it, one of the greatest thinkers of all time, chained and humiliated in the marketplace. Only by chance, a friend recognized him and paid for his freedom. Years later,
Plato returned to Syracuse, hoping again to turn Dionysius, or his son, into a philosopher-king. But power corrupted too deeply. The experiment failed. This bitter experience shaped his philosophy. He saw that without wisdom, rulers were dangerous, yet without power, philosophers could change nothing. Out of this paradox, his greatest works would be born.
When Plato returned to Athens, he carried not only the memory of Socrates, but also the lessons of his travels. He realized that if philosophy was to survive, it needed a home. So he founded the Academy, a sacred grove dedicated to the hero Academus just outside the city walls. It wasn't just a school, it was the world's first great university. Students gathered from across Greece to study mathematics, astronomy, politics, and above all, philosophy. The Academy had no rigid curriculum. Learning was alive through dialogue, debate, and questioning, just as Socrates had taught. Geometry was inscribed above the entrance. Let no one ignorant of geometry enter. To Plato, mathematics was not just numbers, but a pathway to eternal truths. For nearly 900 years, the Academy endured, long after Plato's death, shaping minds like Aristotle who would carry the flame further. It became more than a school. It was a symbol, the idea that wisdom could be preserved, nurtured, and passed on to the next generation.
Plato wrote dialogues for the world to read, but whispers say he kept his deepest teachings hidden. Inside the Academy, only trusted students heard them. These were the unwritten doctrines, secret lessons never meant for public eyes. Ancient sources hint that Plato spoke of a mysterious cosmic principle, the One, and the indefinite dyad, forces that gave rise to all reality. To outsiders, his writings on forms and ideas were already difficult. But within the Academy, philosophy became something closer to initiation into mysteries of existence itself. Some believed these teachings came from Pythagorean influence, blending numbers and divinity. Others said they were drawn from Egyptian wisdom Plato gathered during his travels. Why keep them secret? Perhaps because they were too dangerous, too easy to misunderstand. Perhaps because truth, in Plato's view, could only be revealed step by step to those prepared to receive it. What we have today may only be fragments. The rest, the hidden Plato, may have been lost with time, buried with the last guardians of his Academy.
Plato believed the world we see is not the true world. The objects around us, the trees, the rivers, the stars, are only shadows, imperfect copies of something greater. He called these greater realities the forms. A circle drawn in the sand may wobble and break, but the perfect idea of a circle exists beyond time, untouchable and eternal. Justice in the courts may falter, but the true form of justice exists, pure and unchanging. To Plato, everything in our reality points upward toward these higher truths. Just as the sun illuminates the world, the realm of forms illuminates our minds. Only the philosopher, trained in questioning and reason, can climb from the shadows of appearances to the light of true knowledge. This was more than philosophy. It was a vision of two worlds, the visible and the invisible, the mortal and the eternal. To understand Plato is to live between them, knowing that what we see is only a faint reflection of what truly is.
Plato gave the world one of its most haunting images, the allegory of the cave. Imagine prisoners, chained since birth, deep inside a dark cave. Behind them, a fire burns. Between the fire and the prisoners, people pass carrying objects, casting shadows on the wall. The prisoners see only these shadows, and to them, the shadows are reality. But one prisoner breaks free. He turns, sees the fire, and stumbles painfully toward the entrance. Blinded by the sun at first, he slowly adjusts until he sees the real world: trees, rivers, stars, the full truth. For the first time, he realizes the shadows were only illusions. Yet when he returns to the cave to tell the others, they mock him. Some even threaten to kill him for disturbing their comfort. For Plato, this was the condition of mankind. Most live chained to appearances, mistaking shadows for truth. The philosopher is the one who escapes, who dares to see reality as it is, and then risks everything to awaken others.
Plato's experiences with tyrants and corrupt politicians left him convinced most rulers were unfit to govern. They were slaves to greed, power, and ignorance. But what if a city could be ruled by wisdom instead? In the Republic, Plato laid out his bold vision. He imagined a society led by a philosopher-king, a ruler who had climbed out of the cave of illusions, who understood truth, justice, and the good itself. Such a leader would not crave power for its own sake, but rule as a duty, like a doctor healing the sick. His ideal city was divided into three classes: the rulers guided by wisdom, the soldiers guided by courage, and the workers guided by desire. Justice, he said, was when each part did its role in harmony. To many, it was utopia. To others, it was dangerous, a city run by strict order and control, where poets were banned and even families could be reshaped by the state. Plato's political vision has haunted thinkers ever since, a dream of perfect justice, balanced by the shadow of tyranny hidden inside it.
Plato's influence did not end with his death. It only grew. His academy lasted for centuries, shaping minds that would define the ancient world. Among his students was Aristotle, who went on to teach Alexander the Great. Through them, Plato's ideas reached from the classroom to the battlefield, from philosophy to empire. His writings became the foundation of Western thought. Early Christians borrowed his vision of an eternal world beyond the visible. Islamic scholars preserved and expanded his works during Europe's Dark Ages. Renaissance thinkers rediscovered him, calling him divine. Even today, his ideas echo in politics, science, and art. Every time we ask what justice truly is, or whether reality is more than what we see, we are following Plato's path. His vision of two worlds, the visible and the eternal, shaped not only philosophy, but the very way humanity understands truth itself. 2,000 years later, we still live in the shadow of his thought.
Plato left behind more than 30 dialogues, but whispers of other writings haunt history. Ancient sources mention letters and teachings that have never been found. Were they destroyed, hidden, or perhaps kept secret within the academy? Some say Plato wrote about mathematics and astronomy in ways we no longer possess, formulas that tied the heavens to his philosophy. Others believe he recorded more details about the mythical Atlantis, stories that were either censored or lost. There are even rumors that his followers deliberately guarded some works, sharing them only with the most advanced students, fearing the public might misuse them. If true, then the Plato we know today is only half of the philosopher he truly was. What knowledge lies in those lost pages? What visions of the cosmos, what secrets of the soul slipped through history's cracks? We may never know, but the idea that Plato's greatest teachings could still be hidden keeps the mystery alive.
When Plato described Atlantis in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, he wasn't just telling a story, he was shaping a mystery that would last for millennia. He wrote of a powerful island civilization beyond the Pillars of Hercules, rich in resources, advanced in technology, and destined to fall because of its arrogance. To this day, no one knows if Atlantis was a parable about human pride, a coded history of a lost civilization, or a mixture of both. Some scholars argue it was pure allegory, a lesson about the dangers of corruption. But others believe Plato had access to older Egyptian records describing real events. If Atlantis existed, then Plato's writings may be the last surviving clue to its destruction. Whether real or symbolic, Atlantis has become one of the greatest mysteries of human imagination. And it began with the pen of Plato, whose words still inspire explorers, dreamers, and seekers of hidden worlds.
Plato's thought was deeply shaped by the Pythagoreans, a secretive brotherhood who believed numbers were the foundation of the universe. They taught that harmony, proportion, and mathematics revealed divine truth. Plato absorbed these ideas and transformed them into philosophy. In his academy, mathematics was not just a subject, it was a path to enlightenment. The phrase, "Let no one ignorant of geometry enter here," was said to be inscribed at its entrance. He believed the cosmos itself was built on mathematical order, a perfect design hidden beneath appearances. The Pythagorean influence can be felt in his concept of the forms, eternal patterns that structure reality. But there are whispers that Plato knew more of the Pythagorean secrets than he revealed. Some even claim his dialogues hide coded mathematical messages reserved for those wise enough to see them. Was Plato passing along ancient mysteries through philosophy disguised as conversation?
The end of Plato's life is wrapped in uncertainty. Ancient sources give conflicting accounts, each stranger than the last. Some claim he died peacefully in his sleep at a wedding feast surrounded by music. Others say he passed away while writing, his pen still in hand, a philosopher to his final breath. There are even tales that he died while listening to a flute, as if music itself carried him into the eternal. The dates of his death also vary. Some historians place it at age 80, others at 81. This confusion has led some to wonder if his followers deliberately obscured the truth, protecting the image of their teacher as larger than life. What is certain is that Plato's final years were spent teaching and writing, never abandoning the pursuit of wisdom. His death, shrouded in legend, became part of his myth, the philosopher who stepped quietly from the world of appearances into the eternal world of forms he had always spoken of.
In his dialogue Phaedrus, Plato spoke of something strange, divine madness. Unlike ordinary madness, this was a gift from the gods, a force that could lift the soul beyond reason into higher truth. He described 4 kinds: the madness of prophecy, granted by Apollo; the madness of poetry, inspired by the Muses; the madness of love, given by Aphrodite and Eros; and the madness of mysticism, when the soul remembers its eternal origins. To Plato, this divine madness was not a weakness, but a doorway. Logic could guide us, but only passion, vision, and inspiration could carry us into the eternal realm of forms. The greatest art, the truest love, even the purest philosophy, all carried a spark of this divine frenzy. It was a radical idea that reason alone was not enough, and that sometimes only madness could reveal the deepest truths of existence.
Plato believed the soul was immortal, bound not to one life, but to many. In dialogues like Phaedrus and Republic, he painted a vision of the soul's journey. Before birth, souls dwell in the realm of the forms, gazing upon pure truth and beauty. But when born into a body, the soul forgets. Life becomes a struggle to remember what it once knew. For Plato, learning was not discovering something new, but recalling eternal truths buried deep within us. After death, the soul is judged. Some rise toward the heavens, others fall into punishment, and many return again to new bodies, continuing their cycle. Only through philosophy, the love of wisdom, could the soul break free and return to its divine home. This vision turned philosophy into something more than study. For Plato, it was a sacred mission to free the soul from ignorance and prepare it for eternity.
In the Republic, Plato described his vision of a just society, one ruled not by wealth or birth or military power, but by wisdom. At its heart were the guardians, a special class trained from childhood to serve the common good. These guardians lived differently from ordinary citizens. They held no private property, shared their lives communally, and devoted themselves fully to truth and duty. Their education was rigorous, music and poetry to shape the soul, gymnastics to strengthen the body, and philosophy to sharpen the mind. Above all, the guardians were to resist corruption. Plato feared that unchecked desire for wealth or power would destroy any society. Only those who loved wisdom more than themselves could be trusted to rule. This radical idea, Philosopher-Kings leading a state built on justice, still sparks debate today. Was it an impossible dream or a blueprint for a better world?
Plato's Allegory of the Cave remains one of the most powerful images in philosophy. He asked us to imagine prisoners chained in a cave, forced to watch shadows cast on a wall. To them, those shadows are reality. But one prisoner breaks free. He stumbles into the sunlight, at first blinded, then overwhelmed by the truth. The shadows were illusions, and real objects existed outside. Returning to the cave, he tries to tell the others, but they mock him, refusing to believe. For Plato, this was the story of humanity. Most of us live chained to appearances, mistaking them for truth. Philosophy is the escape, the painful journey toward enlightenment. But those who see reality have a duty to return, to guide others, even if they face rejection. The cave is more than a story. It is a mirror. Are we living in shadows, or are we willing to step into the light?
Plato believed the universe itself was a symphony. In his dialogue Timaeus, he described the cosmos as crafted by a divine mind, ordered through mathematics and harmony. Every planet, every star moved in proportion, creating what he called the music of the spheres. This music could not be heard by the human ear. It was a hidden harmony, the silent song of creation. To Plato, understanding this cosmic music was the key to understanding reality itself. The idea inspired centuries of thinkers, from Pythagoreans to Renaissance scientists who searched for mathematical patterns in the heavens. Even today, Physicists find echoes of Plato's vision in the language of string theory and cosmic vibrations. The thought is haunting that we are living inside a grand symphony, each of us part of a harmony too vast to hear, yet always present. For Plato, the universe itself was not chaos, but a song of divine order.
In Plato's Republic, he presented his boldest and most controversial idea, that only philosophers should rule. Not warriors, not merchants, not politicians, but those who truly love wisdom. Plato argued that most rulers chase power, wealth, or glory, but a philosopher seeks only truth. Such a ruler, guided by reason and justice, would put the good of the people above personal gain. He imagined a ruler trained for decades, first in music and gymnastics, then in mathematics and philosophy, finally tested by real leadership. Only after 50 years of discipline would they be ready to govern. The Philosopher-King was not just a dream of one man. It became one of history's most enduring political ideals. Some saw it as a path to utopia, others as a dangerous fantasy. But through this vision, Plato raised a question that still challenges us today. Who deserves to rule, and by what wisdom?
For Plato, everything in the material world fades, breaks, and dies. But ideas, the eternal forms, never perish. Justice, beauty, truth, these do not age with time or crumble with empires. Plato believed that our souls, too, are tied to these eternal realities. When we think of courage, or goodness, or love, we are not inventing them, we are remembering them, glimpsing truths that exist beyond space and time. This belief made Plato certain that philosophy was not just human opinion, it was a way of reaching eternity. A philosopher's words could echo for centuries because they touched truths that never die. And indeed, his ideas have survived, carried from Athens across the world, across millennia. Plato himself is gone, but the immortality of ideas has made him eternal. His philosophy still breathes wherever minds seek wisdom.